All right. Hey, everybody. This is Mack Slaughter.
And Spencer Taylor.
And this is the January 2025 Trust Tech Chat.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody. We made it. We're here. I don't know about y'all, but it was a fun, I'll use that term loosely, fun holiday season.
It flew by. The whole year flew by, really.
It kind of did.
Yeah. It's I'm glad 2024 is over.
I am too. It was fun.
I'm
excited to start new. My wife will keep a journal throughout the year. And on New Year's Day, New Year's Eve, we always go through it. And it was just amazing to me. Like, that was this year? Like, it just was mind-blowing to me about how many things she read that was just in 2024.
It went by fast, but there was a lot got done this year.
It did. We celebrated our 4-year anniversary. We're coming into our 5th year of owning Trust. And I think we're going to talk a little bit about that today too, of what we are, how we operate, that ultimately we're not just the phone guys anymore. I know we kind of jokingly say that, and it's hard sometimes. In fact, Spencer kind of cracked my knuckles on this earlier. He said, "You made a couple of phone calls today," and said what?
Yeah. Hey, this is Mack. Yeah, I'm your phone guy.
Yeah. It's a bad habit to break.
We are.
But there's so many more things that we can do for customers these days, and we're trying to kind of get into that. So one of the funny things that I found relevant to what we can talk about today is how do customers pay for their telecom services? How do we get paid by that? And ultimately some unique ways of paying for those services. What goes into typical telecom expense?
Well, naturally, whatever your dial tone is. If you're in a newer hosted solution, you're not necessarily paying for dial tone anymore. You're paying for the whole voice service on a monthly basis, typically. Trying to think what else.
Internet.
Yeah, internet. Yeah, without the internet, hosted doesn't work.
Yeah, a lot of times primary, secondary internet.
SD-WAN if you got it.
Yeah.
Some kind of fallback as far as internet needs.
What are some other technology things that people would be paying for, not telecom related?
Security.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Cybersecurity, cameras. And when I said security first, I meant security, cybersecurity, not just
Physical.
visual. Yeah.
Yeah. Storage.
Yeah, storage is a big one. Email services now, all your Microsoft stuff. That typically back in the day was on a server. Now, I don't know anyone that's buying regular Office anymore. It's all
they're probably out there.
Yeah,
they're probably out there. Did you know that some credit card issuers will give you some credits on that type stuff? Cash back.
I was made aware by you.
Yeah, a loaded question.
Yeah.
So that is one of the interesting things. Depending on what credit card provider you may use, Capital One, Chase, American Express. Sometimes, if you go look at the rewards and offers section, you can see where you can pay for AT&T Business Fiber, sometimes cellular contracts. I've seen providers like UMA, who's in our supplier portfolio, a hosted provider of UCaaS and CCaaS, Unified Communications as a Service, and Contact Center as a Service. You can get a credit on your credit card statement when you add that feature.
So like cash back or
cash? Sometimes it's cash back. Sometimes it just straight up pays for it. I've seen, a lot of times people are used to getting payment for streaming services like Paramount Plus or things like that, and it just shows as $12.99, and then here's a credit for $12.99. Other times it could be like a reward where it's 10% cash back on whatever your purchase is. So depending on what supplier you're with, there may be some benefits on there, and so it's just kind of a fun.
Even your cell phone provider.
Yeah,
I've seen it. I'm a Verizon user, so I've seen it on the American Express portal.
Yeah.
I've seen where Verizon has some things. I don't need any new Verizon service, but and it's typically on new service, I would say.
Sometimes it's new activation, but I've had it where, again, to use like Paramount Plus as an example, I'll just see it on my Chase card, go add the feature, and then I don't have to be a new user; it just sees it there. So sometimes there can be some fun things on there, but if we sell a customer a service from AT&T or Ooma or Ring Central or Broad Voice, one of our main suppliers, Unity, one of our main internet suppliers, Telesystem, one of our main cybersecurity providers, what happens there? I mean, the customer's not paying us for all that.
No, and that's a common misconception, I think, because we do a lot for the customer and on the sports side. And so a lot of times we get roped in with that provider.
Yeah.
And they'll say, well, I called you yesterday and you hadn't, no, that's AT&T you're supposed to call, whatever. We're working on, we are not with the provider. If anything, we're with you, the customer.
Absolutely.
And we're kind of like an employee of yours at that point that you don't necessarily pay us. We act on your behalf to contact those providers. And so we get paid in a roundabout way through the provider. This is not a service that costs the customer anything extra. Every new service that spins up, a salesman must be paid.
Yes, typically.
And so instead of paying that provider sales guy, we in turn get that money. It doesn't come directly to us, goes through a couple different channels, but that's essentially how we get paid.
And then typically, this is not always the case, but typically it's a recurring contract. The reason that's beneficial to you, the customer, is that it keeps us an incentive to make sure that we're constantly checking in with you, making sure you're happy with that provider. And then if something needs to change at the end of that term, we can pivot you to a new provider. We take the position of being a technology advisor, a TA, as we're also called, and we're neutral. We obviously have our preferred vendors. Where we're located in Northwest Louisiana and East Texas, we have fiber and coax providers who we work with because those are just the guys who are here. But when it comes to over-the-top solutions, we do have our preferred ones just because of relationships we've built over the years. And that typically comes back to the customer service aspect of what we've seen a lot of these providers do. Sometimes it is technology related. We've done some cool integrations with EHRs, electronic health records, recently with certain UCaaS providers.
We've had, as far as internet and regular services, there's a couple big ones, and I'm not going to mention them by name right now, but those big ones, when you have an issue, are a pain in the butt to call and deal with.
Yeah.
You spin these circuits up through us, through us, via us, we make those calls for you. You call us, you make one phone call to us, we call and stay on the phone with them. Email back and forth with them.
Well, and another reason it's a good idea to call us on the beginning is we can help identify what the issue is. And if it's multiple carriers, so if you have primary, secondary, SD-WAN, and UCaaS all with us, you tell us what the issue is, we typically can identify who's at fault. Is it carrier A? Is it carrier B? Is it SD-WAN? Is it your UCaaS provider? We can help figure out. We may be notified by those suppliers, and so we'll already know. We may be fielding calls from other customers who are experiencing similar issues, but we can hopefully cut down on the amount of time.
And like you said before, because this is a recurring contract, most of these contracts are 36 or 60 months.
Correct.
When you start nearing the end of that 36-month contract, maybe whatever area you were in 3 years ago, this was the only provider. So
Absolutely.
This is what you had to get. And they were okay, but that said provider can only offer you their services. Whereas we're going to know that there's 2 other providers that have popped up in your area, and the prices are either reasonable, they're competitive with each other, or this one's just blowing them out of the water right now. The service is great. We'll be able to present you with those options. Whereas that provider is only going to be able to show you what they have.
And we've talked on it before, so if you have questions about contracts and knowing your statuses, you can go back and watch some of our previous videos. But we'll touch on it again. What is the standard term for a telecom expense contract, whether it's cybersecurity, storage, internet? What's the standard?
I'd say standard that I'm seeing is 36 months.
Standard is 36 months. I would agree with that. There are some coax providers out there doing month-to-month contracts. I had a customer in here the other day who actually would have preferred a contract. He said, I want to lock it in. I want to lock it in for a long term. You know, we see right here, and using one of our tools, we can do a quick quote for the customer in just a matter of minutes and tell them what's provided there. But he saw that after 12 months, the price goes up. And so he said, I'd rather lock that in for a longer term. Okay, cool. Well, let's take you to an aggregator. And again, we've talked about aggregators, and you can go back and watch some of our Trust Tech chats on those. But we take it to an aggregator, and we get a term. Locks that price in for the customer.
And I've seen, don't be fooled sometimes by
I know where you're going.
Annual contract.
Yeah.
The ones that are yearly. They'll say you can either pay annual or monthly. It's a year contract.
Yeah.
Usually, typically, either way. It's just whether you pay once a month or you pay once a year. But you're locked into a year either way. You know, look at the on the paperwork on
what I thought you were going to say was be wary of the free month.
Well, that too. I don't think we talked about this before.
Yeah.
Typically, that free month is just they've added a month on
It's
the
an
end and give you the
extension.
first one.
Yeah.
Even though we've got a provider here recently that we figured out, they do a free month, but it's actually your second month they do free. You get started. It's kind of like moving in an apartment. You pay your down payment,
your
which is
term-
equal to the
Your term is 36.
Correct.
And that right there, I think, is another great reason to work with the technology advisor is we do that due diligence for you. We know what the ins and outs are of the supplier. I'm not going to say we don't get surprised. Things change, contracts change, terms and conditions do. But for the most part, we're going to know what it is. So when you sign that contract, we'll tell you it's a 37 with a free month. It's a 36 with a true free month, but it comes month 2. It is a month-to-month agreement with a rate lock, as they're calling them. And so we help you navigate those waters.
And this stuff's ever changing. The technology's changing, the way that it's sold. And because of that, we just talked about this morning. All the different expos and seminars we want to go to this year. This is why we go to all this stuff, to keep anew with everything that's happening. It's just stuff, if you're not going to these events and studying and reading up on them, you're just not going to know when things change. And a lot will change in a year.
And I think if we bring it all the way back to the beginning of the if we bring it back to the beginning of the meeting, like what Spencer said, you can almost think of us as an extension of your team. We're an employee. You may not pay us with W-2. You may not pay us directly ever. Sometimes that happens. But for the most part, you can consider us part of the team. And our incentive is to make sure that you are in a safe, secure environment with your telecom or with any technology needs.
And back on, it's kind of like you're saying, this wraps it all up in one. We're not just telephone guys anymore.
Yeah.
We're still telephone guys, but we do so much more now. We can do so much more. We want to do so much more for the customer. And, we talked about how we get paid. We're locked in with you in this contract. For whatever reason, we got to get you out of a contract. We have not been paid for that whole 36 months yet. So if you get out at month 18, we stop getting paid then too. So it's in our best interest to make sure that things are going for you well and to work through problems with you. Not necessarily for you, but it's more so working with you to get these things done.
And we've used the term before, a fiduciary. It's very similar to how a financial advisor works. If they have a fiduciary agreement, we have that not as an official legal term, but we kind of adopt that mentality, is we are a fiduciary of your technology expenses. So we would love for you guys to give us a shot in 2025 and beyond. We hope to be bringing you more content as we get better. In fact, I'll tell on myself. We realized our last recording, I talked about our cool mics. They were not recording. We're learning. I'm having fun doing it, though. And we're going to be bringing you some content from the various expos and shows that Spencer talked about.
And we're going to have a video coming out soon. I've been wanting to do this for a long time now.
Yeah.
Just to talk about more in detail about everything that we can offer now.
Well, and how we got started, too.
Yeah, and how we got started is kind of work our way all the way through Trust Technology Consultants and how it became what it is.
Absolutely.
And where we're trying to go.
Absolutely. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you for your support. Looking forward to a great year. Happy New Year, everybody.